It's time to get cutting. Let's talk about propagation. What's up, fellow plant enthusiasts? My name is Dylan Bain and this is Bain's Botanicals. Today we're going to be talking about propagation. Propagation is a lot of fun, and at first it's easy to be nervous about it because you don't want to hurt your plants, obviously, and you don't want to mess up the things you propagate, but it's a little bit of science and experimentation and it can be a lot of fun. So the first question is, why do we propagate? Well, there's multiple reasons. First of all, more plants. Like, if you propagate, you have more plants. And that can be for yourself, or it can be to give away to friends, or if it's something rare, you could maybe sell it. Yeah, also another good reason is you want to have a fuller plant. This is especially true for vining plants. I have a golden pothos that tends to get really long and kind of bald on the top because as trailing plants get longer, they need the top leaves a lot less because they're getting all of their photosynthesis from all of these vines that they're putting off. So I will, for example, in this middle bottle here, I've got some golden pothos cuttings and they have really nice roots on them, as you can see. And what I'm going to do with those is I'm just going to plant them in the top of my pot so that it kind of fills out a little bit better. And that's a combination too with pruning, because when you prune, vining plants tend to get fuller at the top to compensate for losing those lower leaves. So you're kind of attacking it from two fronts, so that's cool. Also, you can propagate if you're trying to save a dying plant. Let's say that you overwatered a plant. We'll just use the pothos as an example. Overwatered it, root rot, dead, right? Not necessarily. You can take these vines and divide up the leaves and water propagate them and have a whole new plant, no problem. It's a little trickier with some plants when that happens. Like if you have a barrel cactus, can you save it from being overwatered? I mean, can you save it after you've overwatered it? Yes. Is it easy? Depends. So where are we gonna start? The easiest way to propagate. Now, these methods are for certain plants. So, for example, the easiest method to propagate, in my opinion, is propagation by division. That's where you literally just take the plant and you divide it. You just take it out of the pot and divide it. A great example of this would be a ZZ plant, Zamioculcas. If you've ever taken one out of the pot, you'll notice that they grow out of the little bulbs. I guess they're technically rhizomes, but you can just divide each of these little rhizomes apart and it's a new plant. It's just that easy. The example that I have would be, my table is so full right now because I've got so much to show you guys. I'm going to move this out of the way. This is a schismatoglotis. Don't know the species, but it's got pretty silver leaves. Look at that. And if you see how this thing is growing, how it has like individual growth here, individual growth here, individual growth here, individual growth here. If I don't know a ton about schismatoglotis from a botanical like biology perspective, I would bet that these have a rhizome. If I had to guess, if I were to lift this out, I bet there's a rhizome in here. Even if there's not, the fact that there's individual growth means that I can take this out, split it apart so that each part has roots, and I can plant them in separate pots and you have a new plant instantly. That's just how easy propagation by division is. Unfortunately, let me get this out of the way. Unfortunately, you can't do that with all plants. So we were talking about water propagation. This is another really popular one. You do a lot of water propagating with vining plants. Like I said, my Epiprimnum aureum is a good example. A lot of your vining philodendrons are good. Sangoniums are really good for water propagating, especially because Sangoniums already come from kind of a moist environment anyway. They take the water propagating really well, I think, most of the time. And I say that because I have, I don't have that one in here. So I have the mother plant right here. This is a red arrow Sangonium, and I've got some cuts going right now. They've only been in for a few days, so that's probably why they haven't started rooting yet. But it was getting really long, and it's already probably still too long. But I'm hoping those take really soon because I'd like another full plant. Maybe I could give to somebody. Another good Syngonium example is this one. This is a Syngonium albo. Syngonium podophyllum is the species, and this is an albo. If you notice, I mean, look, there's already another new leaf there. I've got lots of beautiful variegation on this guy. It's just, when I got this from a friend. Shout out to my friend Sean. He gave me this, and it was just one little string, and I think it probably had 3 or 4 leaves on it. And I thought, oh man, how am I ever going to keep this alive? Because it's just one vine, and I hate when things grow really like slender and spindly like that. So once it had a few more leaves on it, I got really gutsy, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to propagate this thing. I'm going to cut it, split it, water propagate it, and try to get a full plant. And this was the result. And it was successful. And it's put out probably 4 or 5 new leaves since I've done that. And I'm just so happy about it because I love this plant, and I love that it's like fuller, excuse me, fuller and bushier. And oh man, there's another leaf coming out right there. I just like when plants are full. I mean, I can definitely appreciate when plants go up like a trellis or like a moss pole, but me personally, I just like when they're a little more contained. Athena, my cat's trying to get in a box. Oh, and she got in. This is definitely one of my success stories. It's another good reason to propagate if you're wanting to kind of change the growth habit of a plant or really just kind of help it be a little more successful. And I know I've helped this plant by doing that. It even has a giant root coming out of the bottom there. So I know it's doing well. Now, since we're talking about water propagating, I went ahead and took a cutting off of my Epiprimnum aureum, just because the top of the vine of this particular vine was completely bare. So I just went ahead and cut that off, and I just have the kind of fuller part right here that was at the bottom. And I'll just show you guys how to do a quick water propagate. And you don't have to have a fancy little station like this. I mean, this is pretty cool. It was only like $15 at Walmart. I just like the little, they kind of remind me of beakers or like potion bottles. So that's cool. So when you do some cutting, you want to have a sharp pair of cutters, and you want to make sure that you sterilize them. That's really important. You always want to have clean cutting utensils. You can use a sharp pair of scissors, and I just use some rubbing alcohol and just kind of use a paper towel and just wipe it down real quick, just so that you have sterile equipment. Because it is very easy to spread bacteria when you're doing cuts into the inside of a plant, and you don't want to spread any sort of diseases or anything. So I'm going to take, we'll just take this first one right here. This is, we're going to do a little plant anatomy. This is called the blade of the leaf, and this is called the petiole of the leaf. And on most plants, the petiole attaches to like a stem, and it attaches at a point called the node. And the node is kind of this kind of general spot right here, has the little thing poking out right there. And the space between the nodes, here are 2 nodes right here, is called the internode, the space in between. So what we're doing is we're just trying to salvage this node. So I've already put a cut right here, and you just want to do maybe 1/2 inch or so, another cut right there. No problem. Even this one's probably a little big. Like if you have kind of a smaller bottle, you might have to make it a little more narrow than that. But for my kind of wide mouth jars here, this is fine. And this will get just like the one I showed you earlier, where it has all these roots. I mean, it's got a ton of roots. So that's ready to be, that's definitely ready to be potted. And you can just go down like you're just giving somebody a haircut, and we're just gonna, again, try to salvage the node here. Don't cut too close. Cut that off. And we're just going to do another one right there. Do one right about there. Right about there. Let's do right there and right there. And it doesn't take very many leaves. Like, so what did I just do? 5, 4? I got 4 of these guys, and they're ready to go in a little jar, and these are going to get roots really quickly. Within a week, probably, you'll start seeing roots on something as easygoing as an epiprimnum. And once it gets to the point where you've got a lot of roots in there, like the one I showed you, it's probably ready to be potted. Now with water propagation, one thing you want to keep in mind is that when you transfer it to soil, you want to keep that soil above average on the moisture, because what's the best way to explain this? Roots that form in water they have a different composition than roots that form in soil. So in order for the roots to make that transition, they need to maintain a lot of moisture just for a short time, maybe a few days. You just want to make sure that they stay not sopping wet necessarily, but just a little above average. You don't want them to dry out, because the roots that have been growing in water will desiccate if they dry out too quickly. Now I know I made that sound scary, but I promise it's really easy. Like, it's so easy. These guys propagate and root so easily that don't be scared. It's really not that bad. That being said, not all vining plants are great at being water propagated, and a good example would be, so if you notice on the end of my little thing here, this is a Scindapsus exotica, Scindapsus pictus exotica, and it's got lots of roots, not as many as the epiprimnum, but it's still got lots of roots. It's ready, like it's ready to be planted, and it's good to go. But I also have this Scindapsus trebui. I can never say that right. It's a dark form. So instead of the typical kind of silvery look that you see, it's actually like a very dark green. I'll do some B-roll of it. But the thing is, I've got lots of vines from it. You can't even see it, but the vines are so long. I've tried to water propagate them. They just don't take that well. And I've had other people tell me the same thing, that they can't get them to water propagate that well. And it sucks because it's a rare plant. Like, I could hook some people up if I could get it to propagate. So I don't know. I need to try a couple of other methods, but yeah. Anyway, let's move on to, there's also something called a petiole cutting. So we talked earlier about how this is the petiole. On some plants, the petiole is also where the roots form. So on something like this that attaches to a stem, the roots form at the node. So if I just took the leaf off of this epiprimnum, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to get roots. It will die. Like, it's just, you have to have the node. But on other plants, like a lot of species of peperomia, and in particular this saxifraga, like if you notice that the leaves attach directly to the center. They come out of like central growth. They don't attach to a stem. So I can actually cut a piece off of this. I'm not going to, because I don't really want more of this, but I can cut a piece off of this and plant it that way. I don't think you can water propagate. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong. When you do petiole cuttings, I don't know if you can water propagate those. Let me know if I'm wrong. But if you choose not to, you can just plant them directly into the soil. And to assist with that, you can get something like this, which is just like a rooting hormone. All you really do is, I usually get just a little bit. If you look inside, it's just like a white powder. I just dump a little bit onto a piece of paper or a napkin or something, and whatever cutting I took, I just dunk it into the little pile and then stick it in the soil. Now, this isn't always going to be 100%, but the rooting hormone definitely helps increase your chances of success. You don't want to put the cutting directly into your jar because you're cross-contaminating. You definitely want just a little bit of the rooting hormone by itself so that you don't cross-contaminate. We also have something called layering, which isn't super common. You mostly see layering in something like a chlorophytum, a spider plant. We know that spider plants put off the little plantlets, the little babies here, and it's generally advised, I mean, you can see even that the thing is ready to just be put in the soil. It's generally advised that you don't immediately cut them off from the mother plant. So all you really do is you get the baby plant and you stick it in the soil of a new pot and just kind of let it sit for maybe a few days and just let it kind of do its thing. Let it start to develop roots. Let it do what it would do in nature. And the reason you don't cut it off immediately is because it's still getting nutrients and things from the mother plant. You're just increasing its chances of success. I cannot talk today. That's okay. But you could cut it off and maybe it would be just fine. But just for the sake of, you know, being safe and everything, just leave it on. Leave it on for a few days and then cut it. And of course, that's not going to affect the mother plant at all. She's putting off those babies for a reason. She's doing her thing. Okay, what else about propagating? We haven't talked about succulents. Succulents are super easy to propagate because in general, they propagate themselves. Take, for example, a jade plant, a crassula. If one of these leaves broke off, the actual leaf will start to form roots. Now, you may have seen this in a greenhouse or maybe just on your own, especially in the littler ones. The leaf will, the bottom where it broke off will callus, and then after it calluses, it will start to grow roots. Now, that's generally when you would want to put it in the soil. If you break a leaf off to propagate it, first of all, do it carefully. And second, don't put it directly into the soil because since it's an open wound, you open the opportunity for infection to happen from things within the soil. So you just want to wait until it calluses over. That only usually takes maybe a day or two, depending on what kind of plant it is. Another thing you can do it with, this is a Halthorhea, Haworthia. This might also be a Haworthiopsis. Those are actually two different genera now because they split them. Aloe, that's another one. Agave. Really, most of your succulents are like that. Cacti, that's a little bit different. So if it's a jungle cactus, like a Schlumbergera or a Ripsalis, those are usually pretty easy because they just have sections that you can break. But something like a barrel cactus or a column cactus, those are a little bit different. You can do it, but it's just a little harder. So once upon a time, I had a really tall, I don't remember what the species was, but it was a really tall column cactus, Sirius something or other, and the wind blew it over and broke it in half. Can you believe it? It's the same concept of you just kind of have to let it callus over and just wait. Like, wait before you root it. Like, you want to make sure that you're not going to infect your plant. And once it calluses over, it may not develop roots right away, especially on something like a cactus, because cacti grow so slowly. It may not develop roots right away, but once it calluses, you can go ahead and put it in the soil and just kind of keep an eye on it and cross your fingers. Because with any kind of propagating that we're talking about today, it's not a 100% guarantee. It's just sometimes it just doesn't work. I'm noticing, for example, on this water propagation of this Monstera cobra, maybe it just hasn't been long enough, but I'm not seeing any roots on it yet. So I'm starting to wonder if it's going to take or not. If it doesn't take, I might just dunk it in some rooting hormone and stick it in the soil and see what happens. Not a big deal if it doesn't work, but yeah. I think the last type of propagation that you see commonly is going to be, oh, hang on. I had another thing about succulents. I have a Kalanchoe mother of thousands. The species name escapes me. But these guys are amazing because if you notice, if we can get a really close look, there are already little plantlets coming off the leaf there, and they already have roots on them. Like, these are pieces that I took off of a mother plant that has since died, but all it took was 2 of these, and they're not even that big, and they're already putting off babies. Because if you look at a picture of a full-grown one, they grow little plantlets all around the margins of the leaves. If this was bigger, you'd be able to see it better. But yeah, that one is really obvious right there. Just a little baby plant. And you can stick that right in the soil, and it's ready to go. That's exactly what I did with these. So the last type of propagating is called stem propagation. This one can get a little sketchy sometimes. You see a lot of stem propagation with something like a Tradescantia. Tradescantia don't generally live super long. They start to get very leggy and kind of unattractive, so most people will take cuttings of them and start a new plant. And it's just a general concept of taking the stem cutting, making a clean cut, putting some rooting hormone on it and sticking it in the soil, and just, again, crossing your fingers, hoping for the best. Going off of that, there are some plants that they're just a little harder to propagate. Like I said, some cacti are a good example. You can do it. It's not necessarily a novice thing. And of course, I know some of you are going to comment and be like, oh, it's the easiest thing in the world. And technically it is, but it's just, if somebody hasn't done it before, it can be a little nerve-wracking. A lot of your tree house plants, they're a little bit trickier to propagate. Like a ficus. You don't see a lot of ficus propagating. Like, you can do it, obviously, but generally you don't. I mean, if you want another ficus, you just go buy one. It's just not one of those things that's easy to be like, cut it, stick it in water, and it's ready to grow. But yeah. What else? I don't know if I have anything else about propagation, which is probably a good thing because I've been rambling for a while. I do feel like I'm missing something. I mean, if you want to get technical, I mean, you can grow new plants from seeds, but of course, most of our houseplants don't flower. And if they do flower, they usually don't fruit. And flowering plants, you have to have the fruit to have the seeds. And even if you did have the fruit, it still takes a really long time for some plants. You can grow catnip from seeds really quickly because it's just grass. Well, no, catnip isn't grass, but catgrass is wheatgrass. That grows quickly. But something like cacti, like I see those little kits sometimes that have, oh, it's the little succulent garden and you grow them from seeds. That takes a really long time. Cacti don't grow fast. Like, you can do it, obviously, but you better be patient because you're gonna be waiting for a while. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions about propagating. I encourage you guys, go out there and propagate. Go try it. Go take some cuttings off your plants tonight and just see what you can do, just for fun. Don't propagate too much, you know, like my Epiprimnum aureum. Like, I don't take 100 cuttings off of it at once. I'll do like one vine at a time. I thought I had another plant I was going to show you. I don't. I lied. But yeah, it's just fun. It's fun to kind of feel like a botanist a little bit and just do some experiments and see what happens. Plants are unique in that they are totipotent. So there's our vocab word for the day. Totipotent just means that if you have the right hormones and the right growing medium, you can grow a new plant from any part of a plant. But we just can't do that in our homes necessarily. You can do it in a lab. You know, you can take the root of any plant and start a whole new plant from it, but you probably can't do that in your house. You have to have the right stuff. But yeah, plants are totipotent. It's amazing. Too bad humans aren't. I mean, that'd be kind of cool if, you know, you lost a finger and you could just grow a new one somehow. But anyway, I think that's all I have about propagating. That kind of derailed. But yeah, let me know if you guys have had any interesting propagation stories. Somebody get back to me on water propagating petiole cuttings. I want to know if that's right or not, because I don't want to give misinformation. And if you guys have anything to add, please add it. That's the beauty of being able to communicate in a forum like this, is that we can add our own experiences and add things that we've learned in our own unique plant journeys. Because nobody's done everything, right? Like, we all contribute something different, and this is a perfect example of that. Because there are lots of other methods of propagating. I'm just kind of showing you guys what I've done personally and some that I've read about. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I know this was a long one, but yes, I will talk to you guys very soon. Thank you for subscribing and liking everything too. It's just, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Thank you.